Okay, so we're going to be covering our last religious war. It's going to be the most destructive of all of them. The 30 Years' War is once again between the Catholics and Protestants. Primarily, it's going to be focused upon the German states, the Holy Roman Empire. 30 years, and it's really beginning simply between a civil war between German states and the Holy Roman Emperor. However, it's going to slowly evolve into be more international, where foreign powers outside of Germany are trying to take some of the German territory because it's so fragmented. So you're going to look at Denmark, Sweden, France, and Netherlands take part in this, and how it ends in 1648 eventually is going to be shaping how the map of Northern Europe is going to be what it looks like, and a lot of boundaries are going to remain because of this war. Okay, so a little bit of background. Um, as I mentioned, Germany is very much fragmented. You have 360 autonomous political units, right? Principalities, duchies, and you have basically the Holy Roman Emperor that is useless because he doesn't really have real authority over these places. It's not under his government, so to say, in terms of what he could say throughout each principality. Okay, um, so over time, German princes are going to see kind of more of the power increase, and one of the major problems is kind of the geographical location of the Holy Roman Empire. So as we know, we call it Central Europe, and because it's kind of in the center, you obviously have France to the west, right, and then you have a lot of the Baltic states to the north. And being in the central location, a lot of European rulers want to have access, and German princes want to have access either to water, right, which Germany is touching, or across between West and Eastern Europe. Okay, so many other rulers have kind of their eye on German territory, and they're looking to see if they can take certain territories away from the Holy Roman Empire, and so they're opposing any types of consolidation of having one unified German state. Um, the emperor is on the other side of the fence, right? He thinks otherwise. He thinks that it's under his control. He wants to be the one to dominate and control this entire giant area of territory. Okay, so if we talk about the religious tensions, generally where we left off is the Peace of Augsburg in 1555 said that it's up to whoever is ruling to call whatever religion, right, his region, their religion, his rule. And so most of the time we have in the north you have the Lutherans, Protestants, and then in the south you have the Catholic princes. So the problem was that Calvinism had been increasing, and because it was not tolerated according to the Peace of Augsburg, many Lutherans, right, who actually did not accept Calvinism, got kind of scared because there is the Palatine Elector that comes, and he actually is going to be converted to Catholicism at that time, and so you have a tension to build at that time where they're trying to get this Calvinist elector to be on the Lutheran side, not the Catholic side. Okay, and it makes sense because they're both Protestant. So one of the main proponents for Catholicism is Spain, and they're going to be supporting the German Habsburg cousins. So as you remember, right, the Habsburg dynasty is touching upon the Spanish Habsburgs, and then you have the Austrian or German Habsburgs, right, and they're looking to team up together to get back their land they lost in the Netherlands, right, to the United Provinces, okay, to the Dutch. So there's going to be leagues that are going to be set up. These are alliances. Okay, for the Catholic side, you have the Catholic League. They're trying to preserve the rights under Maximilian I of Bavaria, and then you have the Protestant Union, who was under Frederick V of Palatinate. Okay, so the Protestant Union, Catholic League, they're going to be the main ways of how the 30 Years' War is going to break out, but not the only way. Habsburgs are going to be the ones who have a lot of troops. The Jesuits are going to be kind of their military troops to be sent out for the Catholic League. Okay, all right. So it's really important that we understand a few things. That the 30 Years' War is broken down into 4 phases. So please keep this in mind. Okay, so you have the Bohemian phase starting off first. Then you have the Danish phase, then the Swedish, and then finally the French. So these are the four main phases. Understand that French is the last one, the longest one, the bloodiest one. And I want you to understand this progression. As each phase goes on, okay, the motives and reasons as to why that phase, has gone into the next stage is because the reasons are for more political reasons rather than religious. Even in the Bohemian phase, it was really a mix between religious and political. But later, by the time Cardinal Richelieu comes around, right, the French phase is purely political, right? So political and religious and combined early on, but slowly it just becomes more and more just political. Okay. All right. So let's go over first one, Bohemian phase. Bohemia is part of the Austrian Empire. Okay, if you kind of see, it's part of that red part of the map on the eastern side of Germany. Okay. So you have Ferdinand eventually becoming the next Holy Roman Emperor. He is now known as Ferdinand II, and he's a devout follower of the Catholic Reformation. He's totally staunchly Catholic, and he wanted to destroy all power of the Protestants in Habsburg's lands. Okay, so as far as in Austria, in Hungary, all these territories, okay, no more Protestants, kick it all out. He's going to be, as emperor, trying to revoke any types of concessions, any types of decrees that were allowing Protestants to worship freely in Austria and Bohemia, and it's going to remove all of that. Okay, and at this point, when he's Emperor Ferdinand II, he's also King of Bohemia. He wanted to have basically an anti-Protestant movement, crusade, kind of like Philip II, as he is taking more authority. Okay, situation comes where you have a couple of agents that were called imperial guards or imperial agents. Imperial meaning from the emperor, right? He wanted to implement his decrees. So in order to inform the people, the nobles in Bohemia, right, who are Protestant, he sends a couple of guys over, and he informs them, right? And at that point, these nobles, these Bohemian nobles who are Protestant, right, they literally, right, they literally threw out these agents out of the window. Okay, and the reason why it's called the defenestration of Prague is because Fenster means window in German, right? And so defenestration means we throw him out of the window, and so these guys fell 4 stories, 40 feet down, right, into a pile of dung, pile of manure, right, and they survived somehow, right, and they went back and told Ferdinand. So that kind of set him off. At that point, you have these Bohemian estates. They have nobles that are saying, we want a new king. We don't want this Catholic Ferdinand guy, right? We're now going to bring in Frederick V because he is Protestant, right? And he's going to be specifically representing us, right? And he's actually a minor German prince who is Calvinist. He's Calvinist, okay? So this is kind of a slap in the face to Emperor Ferdinand because he's being replaced by an insignificant Calvinist prince, and at that point, war is just going to break out. He's called the Winter King because he only ruled for 3 months. Why only 3 months? Because he loses. Okay, so in the winter months, that's how long he ruled for, and that's pretty much that. He did call for help at the breaking up. We have the Protestant Union, and then you have the Catholic League. So obviously, Frederick needs backup because he's such a small, non-influential prince, and the emperor does have a lot of forces. Okay, so he calls upon James I, King of England at that time, Protestant ruler, gets money from him, but no troops. Also, you have the request of, hey, Protestant princes in Germany, can you help me out too? Some money, but no troops again, right? So he's kind of shocked and saying, I have no backup. The Dutch send some money, but no troops. And so in that sense, what happens is that the Battle of White Mountain comes, right? And he gets destroyed. Okay, so on the emperor's side, right, you have the Pope, obviously, in support of Catholicism. You have the German Catholic princes that's supporting him, and you have Spain. Okay, so the defeat of the Calvinists in the Battle of White Mountain happens in 1620, and at this point, the major effect is that Bohemia is going to be re-Catholicized. Okay, so Catholicism is going to be the standard again, and even though it's just the first phase, there's a lot of consequences in this region, right? Just within the German states, a lot of the northern German states that are Protestant are actually getting scared and saying like, "Oh no, like war is going to break out. What are we going to do now?" Okay, the Jesuits are in control in Bohemia, and one major thing is that the emperor is going to let his army pillage Northern Europe, right? And so Northern Europe with a bunch of Protestants, by pillaging, right, it's basically causing chaos. So this is kind of like his empire, but he's willing to say, hey, you know what? They're Calvinists or Lutheran anyways. They're not for Catholicism. Go and do what you need to do. Okay. Second phase, the Danish phase. As I mentioned, it's getting more political rather than religious. Okay, it lasts for about 5 years. It's called the Danish phase because you have the King of Denmark, who is Lutheran, Christian IV. He wants to extend the Danish influence of the Northern Sea. So if you can see right above the United Provinces, right above the Netherlands, you have Denmark. Okay, it's part of the Low Countries as well. He's going to get support from the Dutch, obviously, and the English are going to come in because they want to bring Protestantism, right, to be more established, and they don't like the Habsburgs. Okay, France at this point does not step in, okay, because Cardinal Richelieu is dealing with internal domestic problems. Okay, so France is kind of on hold, but they do support this, and the reason why they still support this, even though France is Catholic, is because, well, hey, they're anti-Habsburg more, right, more than anti-Protestant. Okay, all right, so the emperor, it's kind of a back and forth thing. We're talking about the Protestant side and the Catholic side. The emperor, his imperial army is going to be strengthened because he brings in General Albrecht von Wallenstein. Okay, and so this is kind of a ruthless general. He really, is very forceful and stuff. One of his character traits is that he often gives his soldiers a blank check. What that means is that, hey, you know what? Do what you want as long as you fight for me and win for me. By all means, right? So he says, you know what? If you win, go pillage all the villages, steal, right? Destroy, burn, live, rape even, as you please. And so at that point, the soldiers are pumped up and excited to fight for him and to win. Okay, in the Danish phase, the Catholics are going to win again. The Protestants are going to be defeated. The Habsburgs are kind of confident, right, that of their goal is about to happen. Right, they're going to kind of bring Catholicism, and these religious wars are going to put all the Protestants in their place, and they're going to become more powerful. And so Emperor Ferdinand is going to put out the Edict of Restitution in 1629. This document's really important because it mentions that all lands that were once Catholic but were taken by the Protestants, right, are now going to be returned. And so Calvinism is going to remain illegal, right? And so the Habsburgs are feeling very confident that this is the second time they've won, right? The Protestants are on the other side, right? They're feeling like, oh man, like what are we going to do? Okay, all of the titles that we had of the Catholic property that we have taken over time, right, since the Peace of Augsburg, we've lost it all, and we can see before our very eyes that all these lands are going to be more Catholic controlled. So can we do anything about it? Okay, so in May of 1629, you have the Treaty of Lubeck. This is signed by King Christian, and at that point, he agrees that he has surrendered and he has lost a lot of territories that he once controlled in Germany. Okay, on to phase 3. Phase 3 is talking about the Swedish phase, and so this happens for a very short time, but it kind of takes a turning point. Okay, so England, the Netherlands, and France are actually in negotiations with Sweden to enter the war. So Sweden, separate kingdom, right? They have some interest in this war as well. Okay, France, their leader is Cardinal Richelieu. I'll kind of explain that as we get into absolutism. Right, he's going to be the chief minister. He's a cardinal, but he's a chief minister to King Louis XIII at this time. Okay, so King Louis XIII after Henry IV. So who is the king of Sweden at this time? Not the one and only Gustavus Adolphus. Okay, so Gustavus Adolphus is the king of Sweden, and he's given a lot of proposals by France, and France, kind of is sweet talking him a little bit and saying, yeah, you should go, and attack. So one thing to know about Gustavus Adolphus is that he's a very zealous Lutheran, and he had a lot of appeals from northern German Protestant princes that saying, hey, you should help us, we should attack, right? And Gustavus thinking, like, well, that's true, we could use it. We're a very poor country, right? France is willing to be our bankroll. They're going to financially support us in this war. We don't have a whole lot of money, right? But also, if we win, we would gain a lot of territories in this Baltic region. And so by having a lot of coastal German states as kind of their winnings, sure, why not? Why don't we go ahead and attack, because we want to, eliminate Habsburg power as well. So he's a very pious king, sang Lutheran hymns while he fought in the battlefield, and so he was actually a military genius, and he was very skilled in fighting. Okay, one of the first battles is the Battle of Magdeburg. This one was actually a failure and a loss to the Protestants. One of the greatest tragedies of war. Okay, so if you remember this specific battle, the Imperial Army sacked and killed 20,000 people in just this one town. Okay, and Magdeburg is not a good place to be during the 30 Years' War, and I'll go over that again. Okay, however, at the Battle of Breitenfeld, this is a turning point for the Protestants, where Gustavus Adolphus was able to defeat the Imperial Army, and so if you look at kind of the arrows in the map, right, they were able to go as far southwest into Germany, and this is where Albert von Wallenstein is showing weakness, and the Emperor is going to pull him out. Okay, final battle, or one of the last battles for Adolphus, is the Battle of Lutzen. This is the picture down at the bottom. His army is successful in winning. However, he himself is going to have fatal wounds. Right, he's going to be stabbed and shot in the back, in the head, and eventually he will die. But so even though his army wins, he himself is killed in battle. Okay, so just a side note: Emperor Ferdinand has Albert von Wallenstein assassinated just because he couldn't trust him anymore. He felt that he wasn't being loyal. Okay. And at that point, because Adolphus was so influential in bringing back and the turning point for the Protestants to win, they lost a great general, but it was a turning point where the Habsburgs were at a loss. Okay, so even though the Swedish army in the end was defeated in the Battle of Nordlingen, okay, in 1634. They did show some changes where they were able to defeat a lot of, at this point, there really was no other winnings other than the Battle of Lutzen for them, but that was a great point where they were able to see some changes, some victories, okay? So the final phase is going to bring in the French. The French is fearful that the Catholics are kind of making one last push, and so the Holy Roman Empire needs to be stopped. So the French are finally going to step in officially. Cardinal Richelieu is the leader of France, and so it's now just purely a political issue between the Habsburgs and the France, and religious issues were really not significant. It's about greed, it's about political gain, and these 13 years are going to be the most devastating phase. Okay, Richelieu really sees that the Habsburgs are weak. And at that point, he says, you know what, now's the prime time to attack. I have men, I have arms, I have money, let's go to war. And so they go to war. He declares war in Spain. And so at this point, you see French soldiers and Spanish soldiers fighting. Cardinal Richelieu is going to, pay off some Swedish soldiers to fight for him as well. And the battleground is Germany. Okay, so that's one thing that's really important. You have Spanish soldiers, French, they're all fighting. They're fighting in Germany at this time, and so Germany's going to be kind of devastated. They're very weak. They've been seeing, millions of lives dead already at this point. So by the time that you see a peace treaty come around, right, a third of the German population is dead from the 30 Years' War. This is the worst catastrophe to happen since the Black Death. And so agriculturally, farms are ruined, right? Farms are ruined, it's not enough food. People are going to starve, right? The city of Magdeburg, as I mentioned, right, they're going to be sieged 10 times, right? And so at that time, it's pretty much obliterated. And eventually, France is going to be able to defeat the imperial forces over time, and then peace negotiations are going to be put in place. 1643 is the first one, and they negotiated that France is going to be taking this region of land called Alsace. This is on the eastern side of France, western side of Germany, also the Rhineland, same kind of area, and the Swedish are going to be taking parts of northern Germany from this, okay? So in 1648 is where they kind of had the Treaty of Westphalia. We're going to go over that. But it's not until 1659 where they officially finally have the Treaty of Pyrenees, where Spain and France are going to finally stop fighting. Okay, so one thing to understand is the German states from this point on are going to be under the influence of the stronger powers that are surrounding them because they're just so small. And yes, they were decentralized before, but they're going to be under the influence upon other countries, which is going to affect them as we get later into the unification of Germany. Okay. All right. Last slide. So a great way to remember the Treaty of Westphalia and what it's about is this acronym, and it's not really a real word, right? But it's F-CHIP. Okay. So E, F, C, H, I, P. F-CHIP. So E, F, and then C, H, I, P. F-CHIP. So F-CHIP, E meaning that finally war is coming to an end, right? The religious wars are done in 1648. F, France is going to emerge as Europe's most powerful country over Austria. Okay, so because they defeated the Habsburgs, France is triumphant, right? They're going to be the up-and-coming country, right? The Netherlands is going to be kind of coming up a little bit, Britain as well, England as well, okay? Calvinism is going to be added to the Peace of Augsburg, so Calvinism is now acceptable and then legal, okay? H, the Holy Roman Empire is pretty much effectively done, okay? German princes, they have their own supreme principalities. Once again, it's not just fragmented, but it's so weak to the point where it's going to take about 150 years to the 120 years to finally get back together, right, and unify to be a strong nation again, okay? I, the independence of the Netherlands, the United Provinces, is going to be recognized in the Treaty of Westphalia, remember that, and also Switzerland is going to be its official independent state, okay? Prussia, Brandenburg, Prussia is a German state. They're going to emerge as one of the strongest German states in the north, okay? Ferdinand's Edict of Restitution is going to be rescinded, right, taken back, and reasserted is going to be the Peace of Augsburg terms, right? Your ruler will decide whatever religion they want to follow, and so the real losers in the outcome is going to be the German people because they were, the battlegrounds, and so you have just in battle, right? Just in battle, 300,000 soldiers are going to be killed, right? But millions of civilians are going to not just be killed by the crossfire, right? But by starvation, okay, and by disease, by malnutrition, okay, and so. Historians believe the population dropped from 21 million to 13.5 million in 30 years. So you have about 8 million people killed in just 30 years because of war and devastating situations. Okay, so by the end of 17th century, we're going to see that the division between Protestant and Catholic is going to become more stabilized. Both Reformations, Protestant and Catholic, are accomplished. And so political struggles for territory are no longer going to be based upon religion, right? And that was kind of what these wars were about, right? The religious wars was in the name of religion, even though it was highly politically motivated. From this point on, the reasons of why there's going to be political struggles and wars is because of a secular reason. It's what we call the reasons of state, not religion. It's just what they want is in the best interest of the government, and that's how these things are going to be kind of decided, okay?